Morning, everybody. We're going to give it another couple of minutes. We have a significant number of folks still not in the room yet, so I'll give it a minute and an opportunity. Okay, it's 1 minute after the hour according to my clock, so let's get going. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see so many of you here today. Pretty exciting. Been kind of lonely at a few of my webinars lately. So it's great that we're hopefully coming up with this pilot program that's got some people excited and interested in what we're doing here at the TAC. So glad to see you. Thanks for coming and giving us your time. I'm Chris Brady. I'm the director of the Michigan Infrastructure Office's Technical Assistance Center. The presentation today is going to introduce the new released pre-development accelerator pilot for infrastructure. Now, it is going to be a lot of information and words, so I just ask you to bear with me. Sorry, I'm having a little issue with folks not able to get in here. It's going to be a lot of words on slides, so please bear with me. The whole thing is being recorded and will be placed on our website for you to watch, and you can also the slides will be there in case you want to get them for yourself, just to have them as reference. I'd like to suggest you put questions in the chat, and if we have time at the end, I will respond to chat inquiries, and then if we get through those, I would take any live questions, but there's a lot of information, so we may not get to all the questions, but they'll be, if you put them in the chat, I'll have them on record, and then I will address them in the office hours that is planned for the 13th. So just to be aware, we'll do our best, but if we don't have time today, 2 more days time, there'll be more questions answered. All right. This is what we're going to do today. It's our agenda. We're going to talk real quickly about what is the TAC for those of you that aren't familiar. And then we'll go right into what is the pre-development accelerator pilot and the overview of the grant opportunity that we have. And then we'll give you some instructions on how to apply. It's a fairly simple online portal process. It shouldn't take you too long, but we still like to walk you through it in case you're unfamiliar. And then we'll do a few frequently asked questions. We've already gotten them, if you can believe it. And if we have time for other Q&A, I will happily answer questions from the chat. Okay, a quick intro into the Michigan Infrastructure Office for those of you who are new to us. The Michigan Infrastructure Office was created in 2022 through Public Act 166. MIO established the Technical Assistance Center to manage the technical assistance that we wanted to provide to communities. And that technical assistance is in support of efforts to access funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. In short, the TAC exists to help Michigan communities secure maximum funding and fully and successfully execute essential infrastructure projects by providing capacity building technical assistance, project planning, and matching funds. So we want to do that by being a partner with you and responding to what your priorities are and help you achieve your goals. We want to be able to provide a wide variety of tailored supports, which this pilot is a next step in doing that, as far as offering a range of services that will help you meet key challenges for applying for federal funds for infrastructure projects and help you maximize the likelihood of success. We do that while we try to ensure that our state resources are applied for maximum benefit. So we'll be identifying and prioritizing the most impactful opportunities that align with our state of Michigan priorities for infrastructure. That includes or continues to include supporting equitable access for underserved and geographically diverse communities. We do all that to try to provide a model for how the state can promote investment in infrastructure. So we'll be showcasing these ways that we do it for our state government and agencies to encourage sustainable infrastructure investment while building local capacity. So you might wonder, well, who is behind the TAC? Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Brady. My background includes 30 years of nonprofit experience working with local municipalities, providing program planning and grant writing and technical assistance and program management and so forth. That was for programs like CDBG, USDA Rural Development, HUD Home Investment Partnership, MISHDA, and DHHS programs. So MIO itself has a strong team with decades of experience in infrastructure and federal programs. Let's see. 2024, that was our first year. So far, we have supported over 79 applications for BIL or IRA funding. As new opportunities arise, we continue to bring new programs and offerings to meet the current environment and opportunities. So that's where the pre-development accelerator pilot comes in. This past year, we've seen a significant slowdown in the release of programs under the BIL and IRA. Things are slowed down, stopped, and in some cases being pulled back. But we know those programs and others like them still exist and that they will be released in time for competition. So with the PDAP, we're devoting a portion of our resources into helping our Michigan communities with critical infrastructure projects. We're going to help them get ready to compete. We know it's coming. It's a matter of time. All right. So let's start talking about the PDAP. The application window for the pilot will be open until midnight on December 1st. Well, actually 11:59 p.m. is a good one to keep in mind. Put on your calendar. So this is who can apply for the PDAP. These are the eligible applicants, local governments, and then their different subsidiaries, federally recognized tribal nations, rural public transit authorities and urban public transit authority agencies, publicly owned water suppliers and water authorities, and new to as far as the technical assistance that we offer under the PDAP pilot, we are offering these small grants for pre-development to MPOs and RPAs, otherwise known as municipal planning organizations, and rural planning agencies. But it's important to note that any eligible non-governmental organization, MPOs, RPAs, need to demonstrate partnership with local governments that will apply for federal funds for the designated infrastructure projects. And then letters of support or partnership need to be provided with MPO or RPA application that sort of tell us that. And we do this with the goal of awarding PDAP funds to projects that will be applying for federal funds. Again, the funds that we are allocated through Public Act 166 were allocated to the TAC to help Michigan communities apply for federal funding. That is the purpose of the funds, so that it needs to be the ultimate purpose of the pre-development activity is that the project itself, the community, will be going for a federal grant to complete the infrastructure project. Let's see. Applicants, non-MPO, RPA only, must submit a letter of support from their MPO or RPA with their application as well. So again, this is with the goal of promoting local coordination with relevant parties. We want to make sure everybody is aware of who's requesting these resources and for what project. And so we ask that you get letters of support, that we know everyone is on the same page and in support of the project. Also, if you are applying, you would also be able to demonstrate access rights and approvals of local site ownership when it is applicable to your infrastructure project. Okay, here's a bunch of words, like I said. Take a little break and I'll get into it. Okay, what is the PDAP? We are looking at providing small grants from the TAC for early stage pre-development activities that are required to prepare infrastructure projects for federal funding. Just saying what I said a minute ago, a different way, but I just want to make sure that's understood. We want to support community prioritized projects that are competitive for federal grants, but they're unable to move forward without the assistance in the pre-development stage. So we're focusing with the pilot on 3 eligible project types, 3 eligible types of infrastructure projects. They're all infrastructure projects, and it's important to be aware. They're for surface transportation, like roads, bridges, culverts, things that provide surface transportation, transit, and then drinking water, wastewater. The maximum grant award is $50,000, and you can, with the $50,000, propose to do multiple types of pre-development activities. So if you're thinking about, we need a public input process, and that's going to cost us, $10,000, and then we need an engineering design done, and that's going to be $40,000. You can put those both in as eligible activities you'd like to apply for, and just put that in your budget, what you are applying for. But you can multiple activities up to $50,000 total, though, for any. So one activity might be $50,000, or 4 activities might be $50,000, but that is the maximum. Again, the window is open until December 3rd December 3rd. Just a minute, checking my date. December 1st. Yeah, sorry, that's a typo. December 1st at 11:59. Administered by MIO TAC. Oh, we're doing this with the support of the MDOT funds, which I explained earlier, that were appropriated through 166. So that is why we have to focus on infrastructure that's going for federal funding. But another aim is to leverage the federal funding with the funds that we invest by at least 1-to-1 return on investment or greater. And all of that kind of questioning is in the application. This is a projected return on investment that we'd like to get the numbers for. It does not have to be all figured out now. You don't have to know exactly your budget. It's a pretty basic number. Basically, if we give you $50,000, we need to know if you're projecting that the infrastructure project that you're going to eventually be able to do is going to cost at least, or going to expend at least a 1-to-1 margin for us. Okay. Slide. Okay. Just a little more detail or just explanation about the eligible infrastructure project areas for the pilot. For surface transportation, eligible pre-development work supports projects that could potentially pursue federal programs such as the BUILD, the federal US DOT's BUILD transportation grants, or the Bridge Investment Program. So we're looking at those larger projects here under surface transportation that may be going for BUILD or bridge or other federal surface transport projects. So you're going to want to consider your project. You're going to want to look at those BUILD or bridge or other federal grants and see, would my project be potentially eligible for that? Because we're going to ask you in the application, what federal grants are you kind of thinking about that you're going to go for with your project? So you need to kind of look through those as you're putting your application to us together to have it in your mind or in your goal, which ones you'll be going for. And then we'll do a precursory sort of analysis of, would your project be eligible for that? So that all helps us know that you will eventually be applying for the funding that we can support. Additionally, transit, the transit category is eligible work could include capital investments that aligned with the purpose expressed in the new Michigan fiscal year 2026 budget, which will be providing $100 million annually through 2031 for impactful transit capital projects. So to keep it in mind that if we can get more bang for our buck in that your project, you might be looking at some of those newly allocated through Michigan legislature dollars for transit and thinking, how can I get that? If we can align you being eligible for that with you also being eligible for a federal grant at the same time, great. We are more than happy to do that and work in concert with communities getting ready to apply for those state funds. So to be aware of that is really actually a great extra, I guess, value add if we can help you with getting ready for the state, the new state funding for transit. Otherwise, at the federal level, transit dollars come through things like the Build Transportation Grants or the Grants for Buses and Bus Facilities Program or All Stations Accessibility Program. So you can look for, obviously, more grants for transit at the federal level at grants.gov and be trying to narrow down which ones you might be thinking about going for your project. Additionally, drinking water and wastewater is an eligible project area, and some federal funding pots that you might be going for there would be, for instance, USDA Emergency Community Water Assistance Grants or the EPA's WIFIA loans. So we are more than happy to help you get something done at the pre-development stage that would then prepare your community's project to go for these funding sources. Or more. You may find others. This is not an all-inclusive list. I also want to be sure I'm mentioning that. You'll just be asked which federal grants you'll be going for, but they don't have to come only from that list. Okay, so now you've figured out your project. You know what kind of federal dollars you might be going for. Now, what would we help you pay for in the pre-development stage? Well, here's the whole list, and hopefully everyone received our written materials, but I'll just kind of go over some quick examples here of what is eligible to be funded. We can help, the funding can be used for planning, asset management plans or capital improvement plans that are needed to apply, project prioritization processes, regional collaborations that need to happen in order to get everything together to make an application. PE&D, otherwise known as preliminary engineering and design. So anything that you need as far as getting the conceptual designs together or the studies or the wastewater schematics or anything like that, or water schematics. We can help with that. Feasibility and alternatives analysis. So corridor studies or traffic modeling or life cycle cost comparisons. These are all examples. Of course, environmental review can take some time, but it also takes money. NEPA preparation, wetland and species reviews, phase 1, ESA, etc. Permitting, the cost of permitting can sometimes be prohibitive, and we can help with that, early permit preparation and permitting costs. Regulatory coordination, pre-consultation with EGLE or MDOT or FHWA, etc. Public engagement takes time, staff, and money to do public engagement. We know that. So you may need money for conducting town halls or putting together and sending out surveys and putting results together, doing the outreach materials, etc. Site identification and mapping. There's a lot of emphasis on GIS as well as the Dig Once portal and things like that. Getting ready for your project, ready for that could be part of this. Environmental constraint layers and right-of-way mapping, all of that. Cost estimating, funding strategy. Sometimes you need to get consultants in to put that part of the project together. The cost for the consultant, they're never free. Some of that can be covered by these grants, as well as the specialized technical studies that you might need. And that's a lot of technical stuff I don't really know much about, but I know you have to know what kind of pavement and the permeability and all of that kind of stuff for different large road projects and things like that. Anything like that you have to pay consultants for to get that pre-development packet together to then say, okay, this is our this is our project and it's ready to request federal funds because it's competitive. That's what we want to help people get over those hurdles. Okay, take a breath. So what are our goals? Why is MIO investing this way? So we want to advance surface transportation, transit, and drinking and wastewater infrastructure projects so that they're competitive for federal and state grants. But there's a time frame around that. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to ask questions on the application. We want the projects to be getting ready to be competitive within 1 to 2 years' time. So we are going to ask you to explain how your project will be ready to apply for some of those federal grants within 1 to 2 years' time. And there's lots of questions on the application about that. That's what will help us learn. We want to help strengthen Michigan's project pipeline for large-scale investments. Again, the transit dollars are coming through the state of Michigan, but also these federal NOFOs will be coming back out. They may be renamed. They may have some different priorities in some of their categories. There'll be new language, maybe new requirements and guardrails around them, but they will still be coming out, and we want our communities to be ready and be have excellent projects ready to go. We also continue to aim to spread our technical assistance resources across our communities of Michigan geographically and size-wise. We see, a lot. One of our priorities is our rural and smaller communities that are under capacity, but also continue to have the desire and the goals to invest at least 40% of our funds in underserved communities. So they're still there. We're going to provide small grants right now with this pilot and see how it goes. We want to know if we're filling a gap or if this is just a drop in the bucket, right? So we want to be able to ensure that projects can meet the technical, environmental, and public engagement requirements that they have for some of these big grants. But if $50,000 isn't enough, through the application process and the pilot, we want to determine what is this a good, stopgap? Are we getting people or communities or projects to that stage with $50,000, or is it going to take more, or does it take less? I mean, we're learning from this pilot just as much as you are, and hope to provide, to work together to keep learning these kinds of things. We want to be able to show a return on our investment. We're starting with a pretty low bar of a 1-to-1 leverage ratio or better into pre-development activities. So if we give a community $50,000 to do something, we expect they've identified $50,000 from someplace else that they're also investing in pre-development activities. It doesn't have to be the same activities that we're funding. We can look at that as as far as investment into the entire pre-development or the entire project's pre-development activities. But we want to be able to see that the community is just as invested in the project as we are. And we want to be able to identify projects that are identified to alleviate the critical infrastructure issues that you have prioritized. But for this assistance, you couldn't move forward. So again, that's sort of are we filling a gap, or are we a drop in the bucket? And is this a critical project? Does your community think this is a critical project, but the resources aren't there to move it forward? And so another project went forward that was more lower hanging fruit, as we like to say. So we want to know how that looks and what are the obstacles to getting these important projects done. Provide technical assistance to infrastructure projects that align with the state of Michigan infrastructure priorities. And I'm going to go over those in a second, and you'll have them for reference. Okay. In regards to our investment in underserved communities, we are, of course, in the state of Michigan, retaining our desire at the TAC to invest 40% of our dollars into historically underserved communities. There is a portion, and I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of detail now because this questions come up about this, because there used to be a federal page where you would go to and figure this out. But there is a state of Michigan page called the MIO screen, and you can go to the map and determine. First, you determine what geographic area will your project have effect, right? Where is it? And then what are the census tracts that it covers? And then you go to that MIO screen tool and you put in your census tracts, and it helps you it will tell you if that or those, which ones are above the 60th percentile for historically underserved communities. And then you do the calculation from there. So you might, maybe 10 of the 30 census tracts that your project is covering are 60% or more. You would just do the math, and then you will put the answer, the percentage of your project area that meets the elevated underserved grade, I guess, into your application. So I just wanted to put that out there because with our regular technical assistance windows, we get a lot of confusion around this because the federal standard was taken away and the calculating maps and all the supporting tools they had at the federal level disappeared. But we still have it in Michigan, and that's how you get there, and that's what we would hope you'll put in your application. And these are, I'm not going to read them all because it's a lot, but these are the state of Michigan infrastructure goals that relate to the asset classes that we have identified to target in the pilot. And so we are aiming to move the needle on Michigan's infrastructure goals with these. So a great tip for filling out the applications for the TAC is to go through the goals that we want and sort of tell us in your narratives, this is going to meet goals, 1, 2, and 3, and how, right? That it makes it easy. Like I did say earlier, we're getting quite a great response to this opportunity. So we're going to have a pretty big grant reading team, and you want to make it as easy for us to see how many of these goals you're meeting and which ones, because we'll have varied readers that might not even be experts in that particular asset class that you're applying for. So I can't stress enough that if you can help us understand how what you're doing helps us meet the state of Michigan goals as well, that's very helpful for the scores. And there's a lot of goals to pick from, and as many as are appropriate are always recommended. Okay, as far as procurement. So previously, with technical assistance that we've provided, we have consultants under a master contract that have done and do our grant writing and grant identification and grant process management. In this case, with the new pilot, we will be awarding grants to the locality. They will be procuring whoever it is that they need to procure in order to complete the pre-development activity. So we wanted to give a little bit of information about and some guidance about how to procure using the funds that you will be awarded. We strongly encourage you to look at, if you're not already, the My Deal Extended Purchasing Program through the state of Michigan. Through that program, you can access pre-qualified consultants that have already been under or are under state of Michigan contracts. So if they are, then we know that you are getting a quality contractor with competitive prices that have already been vetted through the state of Michigan. That's good enough for us. If your contractor is a My Deal contractor, that's good enough for us. You can check if your community is a My Deal member by just going to the My Deal site and looking it up. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you need help, you can email me. I can walk you through it. But you can also, even if you're not a member, or members obviously would know this, but you can search their vendor directory for available contractors. So depending on what activity you're trying to fund and if you need a contractor to do it, excuse me, you can look them up under My Deal and see if they are already a vendor. There is a membership fee, but I think I understood there's over 2,000 members in Michigan that use My Deal, municipalities and so forth. So probably already know this, but there is a small fee to participate, and it depends on the population of your municipality. So check to see if you're already a member. If you are, great. If not, there's a fee of $180 to $510, depending on your population size. Okay, the other possibility is that you follow your local procurement process. That needs to follow, when applicable, depending on what you're procuring, right? Local, state, and federal competitive bidding rules. You will need to document for us how your contractor was selected. If you now, there's another thing, if you have someone already under contract, you have an existing vendor we will need to see that that contract has been bid or refreshed within the past 3 years. And we will need you to show us that the rates that they are providing for the services that the PDAP would be paying for align with the recent work that they have provided you. And then we would need you to attach their bid for the current work that the PDAP would be paying for, bid and scope of work as an amendment. That comes after you get a preliminary award. So as far as, oh my God, do I have to have that to apply? No. If you are preliminarily awarded PDAP grant, then we will go into this whole procurement stuff and see where you're at with that and get the documentation that we would need. And then we would give you a final thumbs up. But we do strongly recommend that you use the My Deal, or at least look into it if you're not a part of it, if it's at all good and convenient for your project and needs. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about how to apply. And this is really a mechanical how to apply. So here's a flow chart. This is a high-level overview of how the PDAP process will work. I'm going to put a we hope in here because this is a pilot. And so we are doing this new. Again, we're getting a great response, which is wonderful. And very excited about that. But depending on the volume, we may take a little longer than we thought. We might do it in 2 phases. We'll see how it goes. But this is the high level, how we expect it to go. We opened the window already. If you're seeking pre-development support, you submit a window within the application window, which again closes at midnight on December 1st. We will review all the applications after that and choose whether to preliminarily support the application. Again, the previous slide, I mentioned preliminary approval. Then, if you get preliminarily approved, we will confirm with you that your procurement process conforms to the requirements of the PDAP program. And then, if it does, all is well, we will give final approval of the application and we'll move into the grant agreement stage. So we will be providing a grant agreement, which would be signed by us and you. That comes back, and then you would proceed to do the work and request reimbursement. That gets further into the weeds, and I won't go there. Okay, so here is sort of a glance at the online application portal. It is called WiseHive application portal. So these are some basic how-tos for completing the application in WiseHive. I want to note that communities will complete applications in the system for your own projects. That's important. You need to set up, the portal requires a profile, and that profile should be a leading member of the community with their email. If a consultant wants to help you, that's fine, but consultants cannot be the registered applicant for funds. And when you create a profile, that is like the applicant. So make sure we often have folks that have consultants or partners or whatever that might go in and start the application, but then they're forced to do the profile. Profile asks you for a name and contact. That should be the names and contact of the actual applicant for funds who are the applicants discussed earlier in the webinar. Okay, enough of that. If you have applied before for technical assistance through the TAC, you would have your profile in there already. You just need to sign in and put in the password that you used originally. Your profile will open up and a dashboard will open up that will show you everything you've already applied for through us, and also will give you the opportunity to select to start an application for the PDAP. Before filling out the application, we worked really hard on creating a guidance document around PDAP. Again, this is a pilot, so there's new information in there. It's not same old, same old. Some of it is, but some of it isn't. But we ask you to read that entire guidance document first before shooting questions to us, because it does answer a lot of those simple questions around applying and what's eligible activity and who's eligible to apply. It's all there in the guidance as well. So you can have these slides, you have the guidance, you have a lot of information to reference. Okay. Next, other great features of this online portal is very user-friendly. One thing that's nice about it is that you're able to save your application draft and return to it anytime. So this is not one of those things where you open a portal and you have to have everything ready to cut and paste and put it all in one session, otherwise you lose it. Nope. This is an online user-friendly portal. You can work on it, shut it down, go back to it. Oh, thought of something else, go back, upload something new. When you're finished with your application, this is important, and this happens at least once every cycle. It's important that you mark the mark complete button, right? It says mark complete. I'm done. It's complete. Push the button. Great. I'm finished, right? Actually not. We can't see your application is submitted. It's actually not submitted until you then hit the submit button. So you mark your application complete, then another page pops up and you have to push the submit button. If you don't push the submit button, your application is not in. We won't get triggered to read it as a viable application. So please, it's a two-step process, mark complete and then submit button. And then we'll get an email that says there's a new application in there. But here's another caveat for you, which is also a user-friendly thing, which I like, is that even if you have submitted your application, you can go back in that night at midnight because you remembered something that you forgot to upload into it that you think is important for us to read. You can pull that application down, upload something new, change an answer, whatever, and resubmit it all the way up until the deadline. So that's important to know. Sometimes letters of support come in at the 11th hour or whatever it may be. You suddenly got new designs in that you want to upload from the architect, and that would be great for us to see. Feel free to keep working at it even if you submit it, if you need to. Okay, this is the general timeline. We open the application window for PDAP on the 3rd. We're doing this webinar today. We'll have office hours on the 13th at 10 a.m. to answer questions specifically about your project. I encourage you to send me emails with office hours question in the subject line, please, so that I can kind of see if there's anything really complicated I need to go find an answer to before I'm sitting there trying to answer right off the cuff. I'd like to bring good information to you at office hours. So if you have a question, send it to me first. So if you think of it, and I will get a good answer for office hours. Great to attend office hours, whether you have a question or not, because your peers often come up with questions that you would have had if you'd have thought of it. So there you go. That's at 13th at 10. There's another registration link, either through the website or the materials you've already received. And then we'll close at 11:59 on the 1st and ask you to reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, this is a really important one for folks making application. I used to make 1 million applications, I know. I want to know what you care about, right? So our applications are scored by a committee of folks from MIO and various state agency experts. We train them on how to score the applications, and we give them, these are the priority evaluation criteria that we want you to read these applications. And so this slide represents what our team will be looking for. And then it also gives you the application question numbers that are related to that evaluation criteria. So this is a nice little schematic to kind of help you figure out, okay, if I want to make sure they understand project quality, the quality of my project and how my project aligns with the pre-development goals, you need to zero in on question 1 through 6, 9 through 10, and 12 through 15. So this is just something we kind of created to be more helpful in helping you to understand as you're creating an application what we're going to be looking for and where we're going to be looking for it. I'm not going to read it all, but that'll be there for you to reference later as well. I will go down to the bottom though and just reiterate that we will still, for this pilot, as we have with our technical assistance windows in the past, be awarding bonus points to applications for rural and disadvantaged community benefit geographic spread. So if you are filling out question 14 through 15, you can talk about how your project will be located within rural and disadvantaged community benefits. Okay. Okay, so question and answer. I'm going to start with some frequently asked questions, and then we may have time to go to the chat. So let's get some of these out of the way first, though. I am a municipal planning organization or a regional planning agency. Can I apply for PDAP myself? So typically we have not allowed MPOs and RPAs to apply for MIO TAC technical assistance because our technical assistance needs to be provided to applicants for federal funds, right? But in this circumstance, we know in early stage pre-development that MPOs or RPAs are sometimes responsible for writing these large regional plans that then you as the communities with infrastructure projects need to be a part of, right? You need to be probably named in them, but also you need those plans to exist in order to provide them as amendments or parts of applications for federal funds. So in this case, MPOs and RPAs, and similar reasons, can be applicants. So here's how we'll do it. We'll just read it, but then I'm probably going to get questions, so I get that. MPOs and RPAs can submit applications on behalf of member localities or eligible community entities who will be the recipients of the federal funds and carrying out the pre-development activity awarded. When doing so, the MPO RPA serves as the applicant and is responsible for coordinating with the community to prioritize projects and gather the necessary information for the applicant. MPOs or RPAs must ensure that the community or eligible entity has the capacity to complete the pre-development work funded, or will provide a description of how they will assist the community in completing the work. MPOs and RPAs will still provide letters of support prioritizing the projects in the region. Okay, that's one way. The second way is that MPOs and RPAs can submit applications for direct funding as long as the pre-development work that they themselves are performing results in local projects within their region applying for federal funding within 12 to 18 months. MPOs and RPAs must provide a listing of the projects in the pipeline to benefit from their activities. The federal funding sources being targeted need to be identified, and a timeline for applying for those federal funds need to be explained. Funded activities undertaken by MPOs RPAs may benefit more than one project or municipality, like those plans that usually have many projects listed. Additionally, each municipality with a benefiting pipeline project must provide a letter of support detailing the project, the federal funding source to be sought, and the timeline. So it could be that one of the larger plans is being written and there's a gap that needs to be filled, and the RPA wants to come for this funding. Wonderful. We just need to know the projects, and they don't all have to meet our requirement, but there needs to be at least a subset of projects that they can show if they receive this RPA plan or whatever it is that's being done, benefit, that their projects will be able to now be eligible to go for the federal funding when the federal funding is anticipated to come out, and what is the project. So it's more steps for that, but we're happy to try to make that work. And sure, we'll get lots of questions, but this is a pilot program, so we're also trying to be as flexible, but yet stay within the boundaries of a Public Act 166, which states that we have to benefit municipalities going for federal funds to the BIL and IRA federal funds. So anyway, this is going to be a conversation. I'm excited to get into it because I think we can move forward and evolve all together. Okay, next FAQ. How many projects can I submit for PDAP? There's no cap on how many project applications that you can submit. Each application should correspond to a single project and can include multiple types of pre-development activities to be funded within it. If you wish to request support for a different project, a separate application must be submitted for that project. So if you have two different infra projects, you need two applications. This structure allows us to evaluate each project on its own merits while providing flexibility for communities to request a combination of services tailored to their needs. We highly recommend to only submit applications for projects that are top priorities across the region and to ensure that they align with the application criteria provided. And if you need help prioritizing projects and services to apply for, please contact us. We can help steer you in a good direction there. Okay, is there a local match requirement? There is no formal matching fund requirement like cash one-to-one match to the pre-development award. No formal matching fund requirement for the pre-development activities. However, the communities are expected to demonstrate a commitment to the project that is at least equal to the amount of funding requested. Again, this is more vague than you're used to probably, or more broad. I didn't say vague, I don't mean to be flip. This is more broad than you're used to, but what we need to show is that we're projecting that our $50,000 up to $50,000 investment is going to bring a return of an infrastructure project worth a lot more than that to the community. That is what we want to show. So you can do it many ways, but it can include the value of staff time dedicated, and you can have in-kind contributions from your community, other resources that you support the pre-development work. And this commitment signals us that this is an important project in your community and that you have prioritized it. We're going for federal funds. All right. Final FAQ. Is reporting required if I receive TAC support? So this might sound odd to put this as a question because typically, at least in my life experience, you get money, you're reporting. But previously with the TAC awards, because you're not actually getting a funded award, you're receiving a service, and the only reporting or follow-up that you have to do is send us an invoice and then also answer a customer satisfaction survey. This is different. This is going to require some support, or some reporting. So I thought it important to put it in here for those of you that have used our services before. Yes, you will be required to report. You'll be responsible for reporting your progress on the project to MIO TAC throughout the pre-development period, not the entire construction period, but the pre-development period, the period that we are funding. Then each recipient will be required to complete a final report on pre-development work completed to be submitted with a final reimbursement invoice. And then you'll complete a follow-up survey to report whether the project ultimately applied for and or received a federal grant or a funding award. Again, those are the goals of our project. Receive those, bring those dollars to Michigan and improve our infrastructure. And finally, we are going to ask you to complete a customer satisfaction feedback survey at the conclusion of the technical assistance. That's very important to us, again, especially because this is a pilot. We want to know what you thought. Was it simple? Was it hard? Were we, did we answer questions? Did we not? What did you think of the process? Would you use it again? Would you recommend it to someone else? Would you be willing to give us a quote, hopefully a good quote, that we can use to encourage your neighbors, your neighboring communities and your peers to, access the TAC services. So this is all stuff that we put in our follow-up customer satisfaction feedback survey, and we do require that you complete that. And that really helps us evaluate our programs, how we're conducting our services, and if they are of help to you and what you would change. I really value what would you change? Those questions come up a lot. Well, what would you do differently? What would you hope we would do differently? Those are very helpful to us as we continue to provide these services that are supposed to be helping you. All right. We come to the thank you slide. Thank you for hanging with me all this time. That's my contact information. as well as the QR code takes you to our website, and you'll see the program announcement on the website and all the other technical assistance offerings that we have. And I encourage you to go and check it out. And so we have, 10 minutes. That's great. All right, I'm going to go open up the chat and see what's in there. I'm getting the first question here. There's a lot of noise in the chat. Okay. Do trails count towards surface transportation? No, they do not. Surface transportation refers to roads and bridges. But if you're doing a road over and you're adding a bike lane or pedestrian lane, you may be doing a road diet, and you're going to go for a grant that does that. You can kind of smoosh a trail into a road. That's fine. But no, trails do not typically are not in the definition of surface transportation. Similar question, would bike lanes count in the surface transportation category? Again, I just said it, but if you're taking a road or you're building a road or you're reconstructing a road and you're adding a bike lane to the road, that's part of the road. Great. Bike lane by itself off as like a little paved trail, not the same. Surface transportation. Yes, the slides will be available after the webinar. Oh, somebody's been helping me. Okay, that's nice. Art asks, can these grants also be used for EAGLE 5-year project plans for water and sewer to be eligible for DW, drinking water, and revolving state revolving? Yes, they can. But again, the point of our funding is the reason that we have funding is because it's allocated by our legislature to use to bring federal funding in. So again, we don't mind getting a twofer, right? You can use anything that we fund you for to apply for anything that you want, but you also have to, for our purposes, identify a federal funding source that also needs to see this kind of a project plan for water and sewer. So it should be doable. It's just a matter of being able to show us that there is a federal funding source out there and that you intend to apply for it, in addition to the state resources that you will definitely be applying for, right? So that's important to know. Okay, can surface transportation and drinking water, wastewater engineering be permitted for development of a new build home community? This is public infrastructure. It is not, I wanted to kind of say this right off the bat too, and I failed to do so, but I worked a lot in housing in my past life, and pre-development in housing means you're getting, the property or what that you have for the housing ready. You're pre-developing, so sometimes you have to put a road in or you have to get the water system in for the housing. That is not public infrastructure. What leads up to a housing development is the public infrastructure where the general public would use it. So this is a bit of a sticky wicket in that the infrastructure within a housing development is owned by typically the developer, and they are, putting the housing on it, but it's not considered public infrastructure. So the infrastructure within a housing development typically would not be funded as public infrastructure. That being said, I have talked to developers about, well, what about the roads leading up or connecting to and these kinds of things, potentially. And I'm happy to have a conversation about that and ask those questions on behalf of a particular housing development. But it is not for pre-development for multifamily housing, PUDs or anything like that. It has to be for public infrastructure. Federal grants to be related would be for housing development. Yeah, so I think I've answered that, I hope. Is that a one-to-one cash match? Not necessarily. I think I answered that later on in this presentation. Get it in kind, calculating staff time, all of that. Oh, thank you, Megan. Thank you for the thank you. That's always nice. Are Sourcewell pre-qualified consultants eligible? Well, I don't know. So Sabrina, I'm going to research that and I will bring an answer to the office hours. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what Sourcewell pre-qualified consultants are. If you want to fill me in or send me an email with more detail on that, then I can bring that answer even better to office hours on Wednesday. There are certain types of projects like transportation that are given more weight in application scoring. Not among the three categories, no. But of course, as you could see the scoring, that's how we'll be weighting them. But no, among the three categories, there won't be like, oh, we really want to fund those roads projects and we're just pretending, or maybe we'll fund drinking water. That is not it. We just want to see that these projects meet all of our criteria, right? And we will pick the ones that look like they will be the most competitive for federal funding in the future. And we will go from there. Daniel, what if you have received conditional commitment of funding from a federal program like TAP, but need funding for environmental review, permitting, etc.? Would that kind of scenario be eligible with this program? If the if the pre-development work that you're talking about unlocks the TAP funding, if you have a conditional award that says you won't get it, unless you do this, then it would probably be eligible for this, or there may be another resource that I could help you find. So I would say that would definitely be something to apply for, and we can get into the weeds about it, about specifically what your award is and what are the conditions. The link in the slide deck doesn't work. Uh-oh, which link? You mean the QR code? Oh, it worked when
I think I just edited this. It was for the webinar an application link. It was pointing to an older TAC document. I just changed that.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, good. All right, so if it's posted somewhere already, we need to fix it. The slide deck is posted already? Sorry, because I have to, we'll update it everywhere and make sure it gets you to the right place. The infrastructure didn't seem to include drinking water infrastructure improvements other than, let's say, wastewater treatment is listed. But what about drinking water treatment, storage, or distribution? Are those capital improvements specifically eligible? Yes, they are. They're, frankly, drinking water and wastewater at the time that the state, that MIO sort of put together the state priorities for infrastructure, the lead safe drinking water was the highest priority, and they, the issue with the most fires gets the priority at the moment, right? So that is formally the lead safe drinking water stuff is listed as a state priority, but that does not mean that safe drinking water in any way, in other ways, or just drinking water itself isn't. So yes, those capital improvements are specifically eligible. Is it a max of 50 per application or 50 total? It's a 50,000 max per project, and one project equals one application. So if you have two different infrastructure projects, you can apply 2 times and apply for $50,000 for each project, right? 2 applications, each at 50. We're going to want you in one of those applications, or both really, to tell us which one is your priority. Because you're going to apply for 2. Obviously, I don't want to judge which one is your community priority. I want you to tell me. Otherwise, we'll pick the one that scores the highest, and that'll be that. So I hope that answers that for City of Bronson. But it's 50,000 per application, and an application, there's one application per project. 50,000 is the maximum amount but you can apply for more than one project using more than one application. The total amount of funding available is $1.5 million for the pilot. Are pre-activities for an M.TAP grant eligible for a demonstration project? So pre-activities for an M.TAP grant are eligible if you can also tie them to a federal funding source that you would also be applying for. So it's going to take a little nuancing. It's not necessarily the thing we've done every year to get the TAP stuff ready. This is intended to help you apply for federal funds to access additional dollars to the state of Michigan for infrastructure, right? But if it's also helpful to put your TAP grant plan together, wonderful. That's great. That's, again, the twofer. We love a twofer. Everybody loves a twofer. Okay. Looks like we've come up on time. So I'm going to make a note on where I stopped answering questions here, and then we'll end the session. If your question wasn't answered, I will capture those and excuse me, and bring them to office hours and answer them there. And that will also be recorded. So if you can't attend, that's fine. Or you can shoot me an email with your questions. If you shoot me an email, you can tell me, again, in your subject line, office hours question, if you're going to attend. If you're not attending office hours, but you just want to ask me a question, that's great too. I will answer you in an email, but I also might take it to office hours if you say it's okay, because again, it's always good to ask a question, because usually in the room, 3 other people have the same question in their head. They just didn't ask it either. So I love to ask. I love the questions. I like to help people be as informed as possible as you're pulling this together and making an application. Okay. Thanks again for attending. I hope everybody has a great Monday. It stopped snowing where I am, so that's making me smile. The sun came out, and I hope you have some smiles today too. Thank you.